So I'm Mike Nale from Oklahoma, live in a little town called Minco, just southwest of Oklahoma City.
You know, the very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter.
Welcome to the Mullins Farrier podcast.
Every horse, whatever it was doing, had a season. Once their competition season finished, they took the shoes off, they chucked it out in the field with some other horses, and it had a 2, maybe 3 months period where it went and remembered what being a horse was all about.
Even in a cheaper area, your prices should be set by your skill level, by your experience. And some people might not feel that they're worth, as much as others. But if you're only charging $160 to shoe a horse, then the only way you're making money is on your trims.
The WCB was a way to make sure that you kept the trade alive. I think I'm a custodian of the trade, so it's like we have to keep it going.
It was hard, but you adapt and overcome, and probably gets to me where I am now. It's problem solving, horseshoeing's problem solving, and back in the day it was problem solving how to be as strong as the older apprentices. So it's all about adapting and overcoming, which was good.
I know we learn every day, but you do have to put yourself outside the box and just continue to learn, which is why I was just trying to do my fellowship, because I still have apprentices, and if I stay at my AW, I'm stagnant.
Welcome, everyone. A little shopkeeping before we start. The folks at the Ontario Farriers Association wanted me to remind you again that their convention is September 28th to 30th at Lumberdy Fairgrounds in Lumberdy, Ontario. That's Eastern Ontario, somewhere near Ottawa. Riley Kirkpatrick is the keynote speaker and the judge for the contest. Guaranteed to be a good time. You know all those episodes we aired this year with the really cool folks from across the pond? The ones with the Welsh, Scottish, or British accents? Well, how would you like to meet some of those folks and their legendary peers in person? I know just the place you can do that. The BFBA Focus 2023 convention will be held Saturday the 28th and Sunday the 29th of October this year at Stoneleigh Park in Warwickshire, England. I'm heading back there to get some more interviews, but you can also just chat those folks up in the trade show hall. For more details, go to their website, forgeandfarrier.co.uk. In our last episode with Alex Norseworthy, she had stated a couple of her goals. One of those was to pursue certification, and another was to compete. Now, at the time of airing, I didn't realize it, but since that interview, Alex had gone to Dusty's 5-star horseshoeing school for a pre-cert course and attained her CF shortly thereafter. She also is signed up to compete up here in Canada in September. As we all know, it's really easy to state goals, but it's a much harder thing to pursue them. And she has, and I find that quite inspirational. So I thought I would add that in here. Maybe you've got some goals of your own, and maybe they've been on the back burner for a while. But it's never too late to start. All it takes is that first step. Make it a very small one, something easily attainable, and then you gain momentum from there. As you will hear Mike Nale say in his interview, life can be pretty boring without goals. And I have to agree. Well, today's guest was one of the really cool folks I got to hang out with in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Every time I've crossed paths with Mike, I've been impressed with his wisdom and his willingness to share it. Mike is the type of fellow you can get into a deep conversation with, whether it's about the definition of a club foot or the much underappreciated television series Justified. Mike will have his opinions and some well-thought-out arguments to back them up. But as you will hear in the interview, he is also willing to change his mind if new evidence is compelling enough to do so. I guarantee you by the end of this interview, you'll probably want to spend some time with this gentleman. I know I'm looking forward to the next time we get to hang out. I hope you enjoy this conversation. as much as I did. You are part of the crew that kind of hangs around with Dusty, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. They call it the 5-star family.
And rightfully so. Who else is part of that?
There's quite a few. If you counting his family, his dad, he's a big influence on the whole deal.
Right.
There's also Matthew Kaknavich, who's a good friend of mine that I grew up with, who actually was the one that introduced me to Dusty.
Really? Okay.
Kind of encouraged me to go to horseshoeing school to begin with.
Okay.
Going down the line, there's Tom Trozen. He's a big influence on the group. Justin Beatcap. Then there's also Justin. I guess Justin, he came a couple of years ago. Maybe, I think he's been there 4 or 5 years now.
Okay.
After him, that would be Caleb Owens and Garrett Stark, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but, 2 great guys.
Yep.
Just kind of up and coming. Both their fathers are farriers.
Right.
So they're just kind of naturally walked right into the trade.
Which isn't always easy to do.
No, just following in the footsteps of their dads. Sometimes that's a kind of a tough thing to do sometimes.
Right. They're big footsteps.
Yeah, big expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And then following on down the line, I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody.
I kind of put you on the spot there. I'm sorry.
So if I forgot somebody, I apologize.
No, that's all right. It's kind of funny when I interview people, everybody comes from a different background. It's never what you expect. You came from a completely different background as well.
Oh, I sure did.
And it was a family tradition I think you were expected to sort of fall into. So where did you start career-wise?
I was meant to be a 4th-generation carpenter. And I did that for several years before, I actually became a farrier. So my great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my dad, and I just followed in their footsteps. Yeah, I did that up until roughly about 2010. That's when I actually went to 5-star horseshoeing school there with Dusty. I kind of fell onto that by luck as well. So the last big job that I did as a carpenter, a general contractor and whatnot, was building some log cabins for the Indiana Department of Natural Resources.
Okay.
Most people know me. I'm not really big on large crowds.
No, really?
Oh, yeah. Like I can make my way through, but I'm better with like one-on-one.
Right. Yeah.
Through the years, most of the time when you build a house, you just work with a handful of people. But working for the state, I was constantly having to do walkthroughs. People are coming from all over, officials and then building inspectors and all that. And it just so happened that Matt had just graduated from Dusty School. It had been a little bit of time. He stayed in Oklahoma, was working for a farrier, Todd Owens, who was Caleb Owens' dad.
Okay.
And he happened to come back during Christmas and stayed with me. He had brought his forge and anvil. I had horses there at the house, so he was practicing for his certification.
Okay. On your horses?
Yeah. We got one heck of a snowstorm that Christmas. Probably the most I've ever seen, over 30 inches of snow.
Okay.
So that had us stranded at the house. We couldn't get out. So we just had to forge and anvil in the shop and he was building shoes, and we got to building knives and everything. And I thought, man, I kind of really like this.
Yeah.
So then he really got to study, talking about, he had to study for the written. So I had to ask him a bunch of questions, and I thought, wow, man, I didn't know there was this much that went into it.
Yeah. You don't just slam shoes on feet?
That's what I thought. And it started to really pique my interest. So, I had some time, and we just kind of played around at the fire. And after a couple of days, I thought, this might be something I'm pretty interested in.
Huh.
Through a friend, just lucky that it fell in my lap. And
yeah.
I'm thankful that it did.
No kidding. So are all of us.
Yeah.
So you're in this career that you've sort of built up. At what age was this, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know that most people would do this, but I took a huge leap of faith when I did this. I was 30 years old.
Yeah.
I actually turned 30 while I was at school.
Oh, wow.
In Oklahoma.
Okay. Well, I was 28.
Okay.
A similar thing. I was trying to find that career. What I was doing, I was not happy with.
Yep.
And it was a huge leap of faith. Moved back home with my parents so I could afford rent and all of that. But well worth the jump, right?
Definitely.
Well
like when I did it, I decided like I was never going to look back. And I sold some of my equipment.
You burnt the ships and carried
I was
inland,
just like,
right?
Yep, jumping ship. I'm swimming to shore. I'm going to find a new path.
Yeah. Good for you.
And here I am. So
I imagine going to that school, that probably is what put you on the path for certifications.
Oh, definitely.
It just seems like it would be naturally.
It's not a requirement, but it is definitely pushed.
No kidding. Yeah.
Dusty is always pushing himself, and he's always going out, learning new information and bringing it back.
Yeah.
One of the stipulations, and he doesn't really stipulate it, but it's there that you continue, always keep pushing to find something new, always have a goal and always working towards a goal.
Right.
And that's just awesome to have in a friend and a mentor. somebody that's always pushing you
Yeah.
and wanting to see you get better.
Yeah. That encouragement helps big time. It's interesting. So whenever I talk with you, you're somebody who thinks a lot and observes a lot of what you do. Like, it's not just I'm doing my job and I go home. You're paying attention even to what happens several cycles after you've changed something and to see what happens. You have that methodical scientific brain. Did that come naturally? Is that just the way you work, or is that from hanging around with those people?
Honestly, I guess it does kind of come natural. The correlation between what I did before and Farrier, there is a correlation there. There is some similarities. Building houses, everything's squares, lines, triangles.
Yeah.
I mean, you can apply that somewhat to a horse. I guess what I'm really getting at as far as like thinking about anatomy, when I look at a building, just coming from that trade and growing up in that industry, I can look at a building and pick it apart.
Right.
Piece by piece. I know I can build that thing in my mind from the ground up, build a whole structure.
Right.
And that really come into play learning the anatomy of the horse.
Right.
Reading books. I love to read. I read tons of books all the time. And I do have somewhat of a photographic memory, which definitely,
that
helps.
Yeah.
So I can study a book. The way I learn, it needs to be visual, audio, and I have to have time to soak it in.
Right.
So I can read it and look at it, study it a little bit, and then I've got it.
Right.
So the correlation between just being able to see how that building was built and tear it down really helps me with the anatomy.
No kidding.
So I can look at the structure of the horse and can find a location of all the tendons, ligaments, and all that.
Yeah. So for some of us coming from a different background, me being one of them, I didn't have that particular skill set. So as an apprentice, I started just looking at the bottom of the foot and then kind of worked my way up the horse as I've garnered more knowledge, right? And the anatomy and everything else, where you would probably see more, like you started higher up and could see more of the interplay of all of those structures just from building a house. So I started renovating with Hannah our house. And one thing I have noticed with construction, a lot of it is about planning well in advance what the steps are, because you can get to a certain point and realize you've missed a step and you're screwed.
Oh, yeah.
And I imagine that having that ingrained in you before you even start shoeing, I think you probably play several moves ahead when you're shoeing a horse, right?
Definitely need a plan ahead.
Yeah.
Being able to visualize the outcome before it's arrived and be able to prepare for anything that comes in play in between all that. Sometimes things just doesn't go smooth.
Yeah.
You have to be able to have some expectations of how the outcome is going to be. And
if things don't go that direction, to know that
is very important.
The time to pivot.
Yeah. But the best part about that, and I talk about this a lot with some of the students, is having a network.
Yeah.
If you're not able to have that experience yet and you've never experienced the problem that's arise, it's good to have that network.
Right. To bounce the...
Yeah. That's very important. I've been lucky to work with quite a few people, and they'll tell you, like, sometimes I'll make things a little more difficult than they need to be. And I love it because I'll go ahead and I'll struggle through it, but I'm like, all right, I'm going to go talk to Dusty. I'm going to go talk to Tom. I'm going to go talk to his, Jerry Franklin. I'm going to go talk to this person. And they're like, oh yeah, if you'd have done this, it'd have been, and it just never occurred to me.
Right.
Because I'd never experienced it. So it's awesome to have, those guys that have been, been at it a lot longer than me.
No kidding.
Fall back on, will give you that little help to be able to see the outcome.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Well, and as an example, one of the horses that was brought in today, we're sitting here under some shade. Compared to everybody else, we're in much cooler conditions than the people out doing the demos. But on the one horse that had clearly had some laminitis issues for a very long time, we were talking about whether or not you just dub that foot back or you just try to bring the plane in line with the whole hoof capsule. And I asked you because I'd been doing the just make that straight line because that's what had been ingrained in me. And I wasn't finding good results out of it in those situations where the laminitis had been a big problem. And then learning at a couple of webinars and lectures that maybe just bringing that bottom portion of it back horizontally, a rule breaker really for some of the books that we started with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I had to ask you, like, what's your experience been with this? Could you describe like what you found?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I've had better luck coming back, not dressing the hoof down, to try to match the hoof pattern axis. I've had better luck of just coming at it more of a perpendicular angle to the hoof capsule. Well, much like, setting the shoe back and then maybe kind of just 45 in that back rather than dressing it down. Where we're located at, we're pretty dry in Oklahoma most of the time. We do get intermittent rain. And I think what I found was really dressing those feet down, and they could be dry for a little bit. Then we get some rain and I come back and the foot would just be real shelly.
Yeah.
Not much structure to it, So I think leaving that hoof capsule alone above.
Mm-hmm. Even if it looks ugly.
Yeah, it looks ugly, but it retains the integrity.
Yes.
And you've got that to work with the whole time till that grows out. I mean, you've got some sustainability in that foot that just keeps everything together.
Right.
So it's extra insurance, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I think you need to explain to your clients that it's going to look heinous for several months, but just think about a year from now, this thing will be.
Yeah, it'll look like it didn't have
at least you hope
what
for
it
it.
had.
Always keep your fingers crossed for it.
Exactly. Yeah. There's always a horse that's going to throw that.
Yeah,
out the window. And I think that was another important thing that came out of just our conversation together on that was just managing client expectations.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, the communication thing, which I've learned a few hard lessons in that before they really ingrain themselves that, hey, don't overpromise and underdeliver when it comes to clients' feet because they will expect what you're preaching, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that really comes into play when you have a client that's trying to get you to do something that you don't think is actually beneficial for the horse.
Right.
If you've come across that experience before and you know that it doesn't work, but they're still pressing you to do it, and you're kind of in a position where you're like, well, it's not going to be completely detrimental to the horse, but you can say, yeah, we're going to do this, but here's what we're going to expect to happen.
Yeah, you call that shot.
Yeah, you call the shot and it comes true. And they're like, oh, well, maybe this guy does know what he's talking about. Maybe I'll quit looking on the internet to find my information. Maybe he does have something to give.
Yeah. Bringing the dorsal wall to the hoof pastern axis is one of those hard and fast rules we thought we should always follow. Have you come across any others that it was something you followed for a long time and then maybe tried something different or heard a different approach from somebody that?
Well, we nailed on some bank robber shoes today. Starting backwards, they call the old bank robber shoes, so it looks like they're going the other way, even though they're going forward.
Yeah.
There's been some people that hasn't had success with it. I've had few that I have had success with.
Right.
In this application, there's quite a bit of a trauma to the toe of both front feet of this horse. The idea is that the veterinarian is going to doctor that. So, but to get rid of the leverage because this horse had been severely overdue.
Yes. Yeah, those were some long feet.
Yeah, and having the laminitic, issues. This allows it to kind of relieve a little bit of pressure off the toe because you could see that his stance was really camped forward,
Yeah.
Looking at him now after Ellie's got the shoes nailed on, that he's definitely a lot more comfortable. He's actually standing a little more square.
Right.
Some people think that that's a no-no.
Right.
I think
it works.
Certain situations.
Yeah.
Never throw all the cards out of your hand. Always save one, that because you never know when you're going to need it.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. So the cool thing about you is I always know I can get into a pretty deep shoeing conversation without even meaning to. It'll happen. And we even had one last night about club feet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the cool thing is you're willing to change your mind.
Definitely.
When new evidence presents itself.
Mm-hmm.
Brad Snyder was sitting there and he was telling us a definition of club feet. And he was like, you just wait until Mike gets here and he'll back me up on this. And then he asked you and you were like, oh, no, that's not how I feel anymore.
Yeah.
This is my new definition.
Mm-hmm.
So you're curious, but you're also willing to change your opinion.
Yeah. I think going through life with a closed mind, you're going to walk into a lot of walls, because somebody will tell you, hey, there's a wall there. And you're just like, hell, you may walk into it.
Yeah, right.
But if you keep an open mind, the world is your playground then.
Yeah.
You've got all kinds of experiences to.
Right.
And if you're closed mind, you may miss out on having a good time like we're having in Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, yeah. No kidding.
So, yeah, I think it's very important to have an open mind.
Yeah.
And be willing to change your opinion.
Right. You kind of witness that on a lot of folks here who probably have learned a certain way for a very long time. And then you see those moments where somebody explains something different and they all lean into the anvil and you see their eyes widen. And
yeah.
So events like this, you see a lot of that change.
Oh, that's
happening.
awesome. That's what makes it worth coming.
Yeah,
you know, just
for
to see
sure.
the light bulb come in somebody's head, and they're like, "Ooh, you know, yeah, that's something worth taking home."
No kidding. You have been going through your process for the AWCF. What has that been like for you?
Ooh, that is probably one of the most awesome experiences that I've done.
Really?
I think if anybody wants to really boost their knowledge in the Farrier world, is to travel down that road going for your AEW. Because once you kind of get an understanding of the syllabus and learn what information you need to know to pass that test, not just in the books, but at the horse, the practical part of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
It'll change your ability and your knowledge just tenfold. Like you'll jump light years ahead.
Right. What are some things that you think you do differently just because you started this process?
Boy, quite a bit actually. So I'll just touch on a few. When you really understand the information in a subject that you're trying to learn and you teach it to someone else, you're able to bring it to them in several different ways. You're not just stuck to what the book says.
Right.
So if you have a good understanding of it, the less words that you have to use to explain it, I think that shows that you have a better knowledge of it.
Right.
And it's easier for the person that you're trying to pass that information to.
Right.
Easier for them to pick it up.
Okay. Yeah.
Just getting into books and being able to not just, and having a plethora of books, because, that exam, you don't just want one opinion, you need several opinions from different books.
Yes.
And being able to apply that, because sometimes examiners may ask you, well, what book did you read that from? And if you don't have to necessarily say it came from page such and such.
Right. Yeah.
You say, well, it's from this book. It just kind of helps you out.
One of the things that I found in starting the same process is that you have this plethora of books. Some of them have differing opinions. How do you manage through that? Because you also wonder, okay, my examiner, what opinion is he going to have on this particular thing? How do you think that plays out? Now that you've gone through an exam process, how do you think that works?
I think a lot of the examiners are pretty open-minded. I imagine they've probably read some of those same books.
Right.
And I think if they were able to give feedback, which they're not able to for the exam, I think it helps them to kind of understand where you're coming from.
Right.
And you've heard, like, the more you dig a hole, the easier it is to fall into it,
Yeah.
But I think it kind of helps, they understand where you're coming from, so that they maybe lines them up for the next question.
Right.
Or to maybe ask the question in a different way. They can find maybe you've read another book that you have another little piece of information that came from.
Right.
So sometimes it's a little bit of like leading you by the nose, they do a little bit, but
you can feel it happening at the time. Yeah. Cool. And then just in your day-to-day shoeing, what do you think?
So
has
going
changed?
back to that first question you asked, it just helped like communicating with the clients.
Right.
When you have an issue with a horse, if you're able to easily explain it to them in an efficient way, then you gain more respect from them.
Mm-hmm.
They start to trust you a little more.
Yeah.
So that if something does come up, they're like, hey, what do you think about this? You're not just, he's that guy that comes over and puts shoes on my horse, and I just leave a check out for him in the barn. They're like, hey, I got a question for you. Send you pictures. Hey, is this okay?
Right.
Is this something I should be concerned about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, having that knowledge and being able to explain it in a simple way, super important.
So it was funny. I've read a couple. I'm always interested in human psychology, and then that plays into marketing and things like that. And I remember reading this one book, and the gentleman said, you have to know what business you're in. Like McDonald's is in the real estate business.
Right.
They buy the prime spots that get the most customers, blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking, okay, as a farrier, what business am I truly in? And it's the trust business. Mm-hmm. And it's getting your clients to trust you so that you can then get the horses to trust you by doing the right thing by them.
Yeah.
And on it carries. But I think going through that process, even the CF and the CJF, that made me way more confident to talk to the clients and talk to the vets.
Definitely.
Or all three of us at the same time, where you run into those farriers who maybe don't have that knowledge and they just get their back up instantly. I'm ashamed to say I probably was one of those people before I actually knew what I was talking about, because you automatically clam up and you don't know what they're talking about or whatever. So you just get defensive. As far as the trust business goes, it must go a long way.
Sure does.
To that end.
And other aspects to it, it definitely makes you more efficient. Like any certification process, whether it be the CF or, certified or going for your journeyman, even for the AW as well. Yeah, you just become more efficient, efficient at the horse. You're more efficient at the anvil.
Right.
There's huge benefits to all those exams. I think life would be really boring if you didn't have something to work on every day.
Yep.
Whether it be a contest, you're practicing for a contest, you're practicing to go to an exam. If you wake up in the morning and you're just thinking, I just got to shoe horses today. I'm not that way. I wake up in the morning, I think, yesterday I just had trouble fitting hinds. So today when I go, I'm really going to knuckle down. I'm going to see what my problem issue was yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm going to work on that today. I'm going to try to be more efficient at it so that tomorrow it's a little easier.
And you can work on something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think a lot of people struggle with in wanting to do any kind of examination, but not actually taking the next steps is the practice time. How do you incorporate that into your life in a way that you can still run your business, live your life, and practice or study or whatever you need to do?
Sort out your priorities. There are definitely things that you got to do to get done, in the day before you can allow it. But just being able to allot that time, stick with it. Try to course out your day that allows you to have that time. And it's got to be important to you.
Yeah, or you're not going to make the time.
Yeah. And it's the same deal, but you always got to take care of yourself and things that are going on in your life before you can help somebody else.
Right.
The same goes for if you're wanting to try to get better. And it's got to be important, so you got to allot yourself some time to be able to do that. Yeah, I think, sort out where your heart's really at.
Right.
If it's important to you, you'll definitely find time to be able to get that practice in.
Oh, that's awesome. What does your daily routine look like to incorporate that? Or is it like a weekly thing that you have a certain day that you practice, or how does that work?
Lately, I've been a little lazy.
We all go through those stretches.
Generally in the mornings, I wake up and I guess it's more or less that's my time that I kind of meditate. I give myself just a few minutes to just lie in bed, more or less get woke up and just kind of feel the world a little bit. I was like, okay, here's what I got to do today. Kind of settle your mind a little bit. And then so after I get through that process, generally I get dressed and right out the door.
Okay.
I like to spend most of my time outdoors, so you won't hardly ever see me sitting in the house just twiddling my thumbs, watching a movie all the time, or
okay.
Most of the time I'll have a book in my hand if I am. So usually I stop by the shop. That's where I park my work truck there at Dusty School.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's headquarters.
So then sometimes there's somebody around, so you have to allot some time for that because there's somebody who wants to visit with you for a few minutes.
Right.
And then, jump in a truck, go work. The way my business is kind of set up, some days I'm solo, some days I take one of the students, and then sometimes Garrett or Caleb will go with me and get the horses done. I'm usually back by at least between 5 and 6.
Okay.
Back, I'm done for the day and I'm back to the shop around 5 or 6. And then if I'm feeling pretty froggy, then I'll light up a forge, or sometimes lately it's just been watching Garrett practice his heart out, and getting better and better while I'm just sitting here watching him get better and better. And thinking,
Right.
Man, I wish I had the drive right now that Garrett has.
Right.
But generally, a lot of times my practices would be in the evenings or on the weekend.
Right.
I tried to not work too many weekends. I kind of leave them open just in case, I have an issue that comes up with one of my clients, or, they've lost a shoe or something. And
Yeah.
they allows me like Saturday to go put those on. But
You have the buffer.
yeah.
Yeah. And then you competed as well, right?
Sure do.
And you still do.
Mm-hmm.
How do you fit that into everything?
I kind of let my clients I do have a few clients that I schedule 6 weeks out.
Okay.
Then I have other clients that I say, hey, when you think your horses are due, give me a call. I know
Okay.
that's probably not the best way to structure business, but
Everybody has a different way.
I find out when these contests are, put them in my planner. So if I'm interested in going there, I put it in, and then I just schedule everything around it.
Right.
And then the practicing, because there's so many of us in there, it's real easy to light a fire or just jump in a fire with somebody and
Right.
get
Yep.
to practicing. I was the guy that would figure out all the measurements and kind of get a plan how to build that shoe.
Yeah.
And then Dusty would come and ask, he goes, oh, how much did you cut? I mean, how much did you bump here? What did you do this and do that? He would do his couple of days worth of practice and then go and kick butt. I spent a month practicing.
Sussing out the shoe. Right. Yeah.
And so now we've got Garrett who does all that. So
Oh, okay.
now
Yeah.
I'll watch Garrett for a couple of days build him and see his process.
Right.
Yeah. Then I'll go over and
Okay.
I'll go over and give it a shot.
I see how this transition works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything's just kind of passing on to the next Next generation, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I'm very jealous of the environment that you guys have created around that school. It's pretty cool. I've said it before, when it's exam day in the Heartland at the end of the certification week, you see everybody come in and you're all like this band of brothers and sisters that just come in as a group and sort of take over.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really cool to see that dynamic.
Dusty's created a really great environment there.
Yeah.
Just open door policy, come whenever you want, a lot of times. And he just makes it such a good place to be.
Yeah. No kidding.
He and his family,
Right.
his mom and dad, all great people.
This portion of the podcast is called the Stratum Tectorium. These are the short answer, surface stuff questions, but it's okay if the guest wants to go deeper. Enjoy. You're a reader, so what is your favorite book?
I'm 42 years old. Grew up through the whole Star Wars and all that. So if it's fiction, lately I've been reading quite a few Star Wars books.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a good way to kind of escape reality for a little bit, Yeah, just put yourself in a different world. Nonfiction wise, I like books about history. Mainly, probably the era right late 1700s, early 1800s, where a lot of the exploration was going on, into the Western United States. Anything to do with history.
If you could see his eyes glow right now, people, it's he does get excited when he says that. All right, what's your favorite brand of nails?
Cooper. I use a ton of Cooper nails.
You might be the first I've ever heard say that.
Yeah, I love those nails. Jerry Franklin introduced them to me.
Yeah.
And they're great for where we're at because, we get into the dry part of the year and they've got just a little bit more meat.
Right.
Right at the head of the shank, right below the head.
Right. Yep.
Oh, man, I can point those things anywhere and they'll come out right where I want them to.
That means a lot. What shoe sizes do you generally have to stock the most of?
Ones and aughts. So I shoe quite a few quarter horses.
Right.
My business there's quite a few breeding facilities there in Oklahoma, and I work at two. One is the Lazy E, so I take care of two barns at the training center. And then another breeding facility that I work at is Silver Spurs. The Lazy E is generally all timed event horses, like running quarter horses,
okay,
or barrel horses, race horses.
Right.
And then Silver Spurs is more the reining.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they have several reining horses, and a lot of those reining horses don't have very large feet.
No. Sliding plates are something you deal with a lot?
They're actually Mark Milster is the fellow that set me up with that job.
Oh, okay.
He'd called me. He'd, I guess, heard through the grapevine that I've done a great job with a lot of the young horses there to Lazy E.
Right.
And I'm able to work on broodmares as well.
Right.
Yeah, he was the one that kind of set me up with that. He shoots all the 2-year-olds.
So you're doing the younger stock.
Yeah, I take care of them. I trim them, take care of them all the way up to their 2-year-old age, and then they start going into training.
Right.
He's the one that gets to do all the sliding plates and all
right.
that.
You're the one who sets them up to get to that point. And we had that conversation just a little bit earlier, how you have been in the trenches with the youngsters for quite a while, but what a learning experience that's been.
It's been a great learning experience. It does take a toll on your body a little bit. I've gotten to where that I'll be aware of the fact that if you have good horsemanship skills, that's when you really, really need it. And patience.
Yeah.
I've just learned a ton from seeing them born, as a foal and watching progress as they age. Being able to identify there again, looking ahead to say, well, yes, this horse has a little bit of a rotation of deformity, but give him some time, and
that'll probably sort it.
Yeah, this one will be sorted. But being able to look at another one is like, if we don't take care of this today, in 3, 6, or 9 months from now, it's going to be an issue. All the great people that allowed me to come work on those horses and, and have helped me along with it, definitely benefit from it. To me, I think it's a game changer.
Yeah.
Especially in having that number of horses, to work on. So you get to see a wide variety, where most guys only maybe will see that one case in 10 years.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, it's taught me a lot.
And you see how they respond to what you're doing too, right?
Yeah. And where you've messed up.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes you mess up.
Yep. You come back and you're often doing those in a much tighter schedule.
Right.
Because they're young and growing. So you do see those changes in a much quicker fashion.
And being able to work with the vets that work at both places, they're great to work with.
Right.
yeah, just a good team, and all there to benefit the horse.
Right. Yeah. Favorite make of rasp?
Heller. I use the blue tank quite a bit.
What's your dream Farrier rig?
Honestly, I'm a minimalist and I like to try to keep things simple. So a smaller truck like a Dodge Dakota or maybe one of the new Chevy Colorados,
Right.
something small,
Yeah.
easy to access. I'm not blessed with great height, and the trucks are getting taller and taller.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to keep things, pretty simple. So yeah, just a small truck with a topper, really.
Cool.
Pretty easy. It'd be nice to have like a stone well or, a big deal, but I just don't think I'm ready for something like that.
Right. Favorite rounding hammer?
So I have two that I really love. One is actually a Con Forge hammer.
Oh, really?
I love that thing. And the other hammer that I have, because it's a 2-pound, I love it because it just feels good. It's got a good return, and
Yep.
it does what I want it to do. When I want to step up something a little heavier, if I'm building like draft shoes or I really got to pound something out, I have a Chris Madrid hammer that I bought from bought in Sheridan, Wyoming several years ago.
Okay.
And those are my two favorite hammers. Yeah.
What's your favorite type of bar stock to work with?
3/8x1,
Just flat stock.
because that stuff right there is so hard to figure out. Trying to build sections, building a section is very important, and you can just do so much with 3/8x1. If you need something a little bigger, you can always bump it with a wider section. You can always bump it up, and if you don't need a wider section, you can always draw it down.
Right.
So it's a versatile section that you can do just so much with.
Right. It seems to be a pretty common answer these days. Next thing on your bucket list?
Past my AW.
What's your favorite brand of keg shoe?
Con. They've done so much with them. I may cuss the nail fit a little bit, especially when I have to try to reset the shoe, but trying to knock the nails out there, but that's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Favorite anvil?
Emerson.
Okay. Mine too. Ideal number of horses to shoot all around in one day?
5. Definitely 5. I try to stick to that, but it doesn't always happen. I've gotten smarter about that too. Now I definitely take help to some of those breeding farms, A lot of times it may be half sets, but still, when you have to knock out 12 half sets and, 20 trims, that's
a
a
day.
little bit too much.
Yeah. No
In
kidding.
fact, before we came down here Monday, Garrett's been helping me quite a bit at the Lazy. I never got him done without him. I appreciate that. I appreciate him a lot. He saves my back,
Mm-hmm.
saves my mind, because looking at a list, it can really,
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it really bring you down.
Yeah, you can get depressed pretty quickly looking at that daunting list. Favorite inspirational quote?
it does not take guts to quit. It actually came from a fortune cookie.
Really?
I mean, it came at the right time. Just went to this little Chinese buffet and brought out the little cookies. And, sometimes I eat them, sometimes I don't. But I was like, I wonder what this one says. And I opened it up, and sure enough, it says, and I needed it that day because I must have been shooting a bunch of horses or something. And I thought, man, I don't know if I can do this.
Right.
And then it came out and it says, it does not take guts to quit. And I still got it in my wallet.
Really?
Yep, sure do.
What we do back at home is when you read the fortune, you end it with "in bed,"
I like it.
which adds a whole other meaning to yours.
Yes,
Yeah. Do you have a Farrier Terrier?
I do. Her name's Jade. She doesn't go with me from work. She's a little too high energy,
Okay.
but she's getting up in her age. And she's a Catahoula, kind of a black mouth cur mix.
Okay.
Yeah, she's my good buddy.
Yeah. This will be a silly question to ask you. If you're stumped on a case or need backup, who do you call? I already know you have a big list.
Yeah. First, definitely Dusty.
Yeah. Good one to have in your corner. Do you have a favorite shoe or package for a mystery lameness when the client either doesn't want to pay for a diagnosis or the vet is stumped?
Turn it out to pasture.
Yeah? Pull the shoes and turn it out to pasture?
Yeah, sometimes. Not always. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from Jim Keith. Got the opportunity to go over to his shop and hang out for a week. And I asked him that same question, but in a different format. I asked him if you have a horse that has an issue that's a lameness and you're just not quite sure what it is. I was like, what would you do? He said, well, if I have other horses to shoe, he said, I'm going to tie that horse up where I can see him from the anvil. I can see him when I go to the truck. I can see him when I'm working on the other horse. And he'll tell you, you watch that horse long enough and he'll tell you what he needs. If you have enough horsemanship skills to watch, that horse will tell you what he needs.
Like the ones that find the ledge of
Mhm.
something and either hang their toe off the end of it.
Whether he's shuffling,
Right.
let him be the last horse you work on that day, and just watch.
Watch him do his thing. Huh. I like that. What do you use as your planner?
I use my phone, but I back all of it up to my laptop.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yeah, because I always have my phone with me, and I would lose the planner. In the past, I did try the planner, and I've misplaced it.
And then
That's
you're
when my
screwed.
photographic memory would come in handy.
Oh,
but,
yeah, right.
But sometimes it's just like, you toss it in the back seat, and then, you shuffle some stuff around, and
And it's
it goes
gone.
missing.
Yep. I tried doing the iPad thing,
Mhm.
had it in my back seat, and one day I was folding the seat down. It just would not come down. So I gave her, and that's when I heard the screen crack.
Oh, no.
It was in between. So what's your favorite method of soothing aches and pains?
Rest. Every now and then, a good Eagle Rare. That's a bourbon.
Okay. Yeah, you could see the confused look on my face there.
Yeah.
What's your favorite drink?
I do enjoy Eagle Rare, but my favorite drink would probably have to be good cold water.
Yeah,
Really good cold water.
that's a healthy answer. Do you work out?
I used to, and what I found, maybe I was just pushing myself a little bit too much. Being a farrier and working out,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it's just from all the abuse that I've done to my body over the years. Being a carpenter and
Right.
just being a guy and just doing all the dumb stuff that we do sometimes. I'd run myself down, I guess, too much. I'd
Okay.
lost some weight. I was running. I was running a little and working out some, and so no, not anymore.
You didn't feel in a good spot.
No, I still try to eat healthy and do all the right stuff. So I feel better now than I did when I was working out.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. What would you have been if not a farrier?
I would love to be honestly, I know this sounds crazy because I've changed careers, but my dream had always been to also work at someplace like Yellowstone, work at a national park.
Oh, okay.
And I have a huge love for Yellowstone anyway, the park.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought it'd be cool to just be out in the nature, be out in the wild and fixing all the sidewalks or, just, doing some woodwork out.
Right.
They've got several log buildings there that are just beautiful that are, at least 100 years old now that need to be maintained. But
Right. Yeah.
even just being a tour guide there, that may be my retirement. I don't know yet.
Hence why you don't spend much time inside.
Right.
Yeah. Makes sense. And the last question, if you were stuck in a shop with somebody for a month under quarantine, who would you want to be there with?
Jim Keith,
There you go.
that guy, he can come at you so many different ways. I love to just listen to him talk.
Yeah.
I would just like to be able to have that month to get in his mind
Yeah.
and maybe one day, hopefully, to be able to emulate what he's done,
Right.
for the industry and what he's just done as a man.
No kidding. Yeah. No, I have never come away from an interaction with him without learning a lot.
Be an artist like he is, that's the
Yeah.
stuff he does is amazing. Just to be able to see the world through his eyes, that would be awesome.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, thank you very much, Mike. I really appreciate this.
You're welcome.
I've been looking forward to this for a long time, so glad it happened finally. Just had to get you in Mexico.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess so.
So as an added bonus to this episode, I asked my good friend Chris Gregory to read an excerpt from his latest book, For the Want of a Shoe, The Horse Was Lost, which is a collection of stories covering Chris's childhood growing up on a ranch in New Mexico to his time spent at the New Mexico Military Institute. Chris read this particular story aloud to Mike Garrett and I while we were visiting for one of the short courses in the Heartland. It's a great example of many of the anecdotal stories that Chris tells in his book. You can get your own copy of the book through Amazon or through the school's website at heartlandhorseshoeing.com. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other out there. Thank you for listening, and I now leave you with Chris Gregory.
For the want of a shoe, the horse was lost. Plain Pull-Off, Chapter 42. By my senior year, I was the Mounted Color Guard, MCG, commander. Rodeo and horses interested me a lot more than things military. In the Corps, I was living in an India troop, but my formation was with the regular Color Guard. These were the dismounted cadets who raised the flag in the morning, lowered it at night, and shot the cannon. Since I was technically on the Mounted Color Guard, I didn't have to be there for the dismounted Color Guard every formation. So life was easy for me. With the assurance and confidence that only a teenager can possess, I declared my title as Mounted Color Guard Representative to the Dismounted Color Guard, a previously unknown position that had allowed more freedom than the military would wish upon a lowly sergeant. I could sleep in past the blast of the morning trumpets and didn't have to go to supper roll call or SRC with my troops. I went with the Dismounted Color Guard about twice a week and was living as unrestricted a life as was possible for any cadet. Again, I was finding that special place, just like the janitor's area in middle school and the motor pool at NMMI. When it was time for an inspection and parade, we of course had the perceived massive and lengthy job of getting the horses ready for their performance. None of the brass understood anything about horses and didn't know that we could have easily gone to the arena and been saddled and ready in short order. Not that any MCG cadet would ever have let them know. By tradition, this had always allowed the Mounted Color Guard guys to miss the inspection altogether, and we would go out to the arena in the morning and have a full day of looking busy while goofing off. The knack of looking like you're accomplishing something while you are slacking off is perhaps the most valuable soldier skill. That is why a lot of second lieutenants carry clipboards. Problems arise when you are caught truly goofing off without the appearance of progress. "Thanks for getting me out of the inspection," my buddy Sean said from the top rail of the arena fence. "I hate those things." "Everyone hates them," I agreed. He was a bronc rider, so he was a member of the NMMI rodeo team, but not on the Mounted Color Guard. About 10 of us were sitting on our horses just inside the arena, getting ready to play one of our favorite arena games that we called pull-off. The game was simple and based on the popular freeze tag that kids used to play at recess or in progressive PE programs. There were 2 teams, and the object of the game was to pull the other riders from their mounts. Once you were pulled off your horse, you could remount, but you had to sit there until another member of your team touched you so that you could rejoin the fray and start pulling people off their horses again. "Hey man, no problem," I responded. "Of course the MCG needs help getting ready. You're on my team if you want to ride Shorty." He went and got my other horse, but I was on Pelvis. While Pelvis could be a little animated, not necessarily the best roping horse, he was one of the best pull-off horses you could have. He was massive and didn't mind running over and through other horses and mounted cowboys. I think he would have been a great jousting mount if I had been born in another time and had been a knight. Sean was strong and brave, so he made a great addition to anyone's pull-off team. Shorty was a great heeling horse, but lacked the size and strength for playing pull-off. Sean had to make up the difference. Once the teams were decided, pandemonium commenced. I rode Pelvis with the intention of being like a bowling ball. It was great to hit another horse in T-bone fashion, make that horse stumble, and grab the other cowboy and pull him to the ground. The downside was that when I got pulled off Pelvis myself, it was a long way to fall and hard to get back on bareback in the middle of the arena. I smashed hard into my brother's mount and tried to grab the collar of his shirt. He ducked, and Leon pushed my out-of-balance self over the side of Pelvis. I landed hard amidst a mass of stomping hooves and did my best to keep my reins. If your horse ran off, that was the worst. You had to stand there while a teammate retrieved your horse. Being without a horse in the middle of all the other mounted cowboys could be a challenge. They weren't too interested or concerned about your safety, so you had to take that responsibility upon yourself. I popped up and remounted as the main part of the skirmish moved away. I had to sit still and wait to be tagged back in. "They got me!" I yelled to any teammate that might be able to unfreeze me. "I'm coming," I heard Dick respond. Dick rode a big paint horse, and he was galloping toward me when Kevin attacked, and they both ended up in a heap on the ground. It wasn't looking good for my team. Little Mike had pulled Sean off in another corner, and it was just about over for my guys when I heard an angry yell from the gate. "Exactly what is going on here?" the man yelled. "Who is in charge?" Crap. I looked. It was Colonel Bruno. He was the officer in charge of all the TAC officers. These were the active duty Army officers who controlled the military interests of the NMMI Corps of Cadets. Colonel Bruno had been in Delta Force in Vietnam and had very little patience for any cadet who was not inspired to become the best soldier that he could be. I was not in the category of aspiring super soldier. That he could make my life miserable was a given, and I just knew that my short time as MCG commander had just come to an end. All the eyes were on me as I rode Pelvis toward the waiting colonel. He was in his dress uniform for inspection, and how he had come to be in the arena is still a mystery, but there he was. "I am," I said. To Pelvis's credit, he was walking slowly with his head down, every bit as meek as I was feeling. "Just exactly what is going on here, Sergeant Gregory?" he asked. It was not a great honor that he knew my name by sight, even though I was not in uniform. My undesired participation in tour squad had led to that familiarity. It had also led him to expecting the worst from me. "We are getting ready for the parade, sir," I answered. "There are only 6 horses in the Mounted Color Guard, and I see at least a dozen horses and cadets out here. You have some serious explaining to do. I will see you in my office after BRC at 0730 tomorrow. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." "This had better be the best parade of your life," he said to me. "Don't be late tomorrow." "Yes, sir." "You had better have a very good explanation for this. There's an inspection going on." He seemed at a loss, but I could tell that he wanted to continue and read me out right there. "Yes, sir." What else could I say? "I can't believe what I am seeing out here. You will be at my office tomorrow at 0730. "Yes, sir." I seemed to be stuck in that groove. With that, Colonel Bruno executed an about face and marched through the stall area and back towards the box where the inspection was getting underway. If people really could breathe smoke from their ears, he had been leaving a trail like a steam engine. We still had about 3 or 4 hours until the parade. "Oh, man," little Mike said, riding up on Corky. "You're in for it, bro." "Probably," I agreed. "What are you going to do?" Dick asked. "Nothing to do now," I said. "At least I have the night to work on it." "Glad it's you and not me," Sean added. "Well, man, we might as well finish the game." I turned and started loping toward the end of the arena. "Hold on," Kevin hollered. "You guys are all already frozen. You can't just start over like that." "New game," I yelled, and started toward him on my charger with a full intent of pulling him off. He evaded, and the game started fresh as we tried to kill each other without dying. Amazing that we survived that game, but it sure was fun. The parade went off without a hitch, and we all looked like mounted heroes as we rode through the mass of marching cadets, each flag held straight, each horse walking and turning in formation with precision and grace. "Okay, guys, just let me do the talking," I said to my guys who were waiting outside Colonel Bruno's office the next morning. All of my guys had decided to come with me. They figured it was going to be quite the show, and the chances of getting hit by friendly fire were small since it all rested on the commander's shoulders. I had experience with being in trouble and experience with talking my way out of it as well. My youth had provided a lot of practice with that sort of thing. This was going to be a sticky wicket, as they say, but there wasn't any choice. "Colonel Brewer, Cadet Sergeant Gregory, CL, reporting as ordered," I said as I stood at attention, my right hand held stiff in salute, my eyes boring a hole through the wall above his head where he sat at his desk. My fellow cowboy cadet stood at attention behind me. "At ease," Colonel Bruno said as he returned my salute. "Exactly what in the Sam Hill was going on out there yesterday?" he asked. "Sir, we were getting the horses ready for the parade, sir," I answered. "That didn't look like any parade prep to me," Colonel Bruno said. "Do you remember when I got bucked off in the parade my rat year, sir?" I asked. "Yeah, so what?" "Well, sir, if my horse had been prepared the way I was getting those horses ready, he never would have bucked me off, sir," I answered. "I learned a lot from that experience, sir." "How was running around the arena and hitting each other helping?" he asked. My story was thin, but it was all the substance I had, and I wasn't going to abandon it. "Well, sir, those horses are athletes that get very pent up if they aren't properly warmed up and worked prior to having to stand out there in the parade with so much going on around them, sir. What you witnessed, sir, was my way, as Mounted Color Guard commander, of ensuring that the horses have been exposed to everything I can expose them to prior to being in the parade, sir." "And why did you need so many people out there when there are only 6 horses in the MCG?" he asked. A valid question, but I had another answer. "Well, sir, we needed the extra riders to make sure the horses that were in the parade were well prepared prior to the parade, sir," I answered. "Plus, sir, the extra manpower helps us make sure that the horses are groomed and that the leg wraps are correct before we go out on parade, sir." "I'm not sure I'm buying all this, Sergeant Gregory." "Well, sir, no one has been bucked off at a parade since I took command, sir. So, sir, something must be working, sir. No one had been bucked off in a parade since I had been dumped by Pelvis in my rat year, and I had never heard of any prior, but that was beside the point. We were all unseasoned rodeo horses, so the reality was that these horses had already been places and seen things, so the repeat of my embarrassing incident was unlikely anyway. Not that I was going to share that with Colonel Bruno. "Get out of here," Colonel Bruno growled. "See if you can do it with fewer cadets missing the inspection next time. Dismissed." With that, we all left and headed to the PX to have a coffee or a milkshake, depending on our personal bent, and discuss the great escape that they had just witnessed. "Congratulations," my brother said. "You are unbelievable." "Well, lucky for us, I am just believable enough," I answered, put my arm around little Mike's shoulder. We all laughed. It was a lucky break, but unfortunately, future parades did not include a big game of pull-off to get the horses ready. We also had to leave our rough stock buddies to the unhappiness of military inspections.